Hello everyone, this is International Master John Daniel Bryant, bringing you a game I played recently in the last round of the Southern California Open held this past weekend. And I had to win this game against International Master Edward Formanek to win the tournament in clear first. So here's the game. I was white, we got a French defense, and I played the Terrace variation as usual. I consider knight c3 to be a better move, but I've played knight d2 so many times, so there's an advantage to that. Yes, queen takes d5 is strong. This line is considered to equalize these days, along with the bishop e7 on move 3 is pretty good as well. This is all normal, but then he played bishop d7, which is a little bit rare. The normal move is instead a6, which is preparing b5 at some point, and it's preventing knight b5 or bishop b5 at any moment. So, but he played bishop d7, which is a solid move. But I still think developing the bishop to b7 is more ambitious than d7 because it's a much longer diagonal. So the bishop is much better on b7 than on d7. So I played c3, so now I can move my queen since my knight's defended. And I brought my bishop out. And by the way, in these whole positions, the idea is black would like to get an e5, and then I just want to make sure that I'm improving my position while keeping e5 in check. So if he played e5 here, for instance, then I just play rook e1, and after e takes d4, I recover my piece here, and then take. I'm threatening bishop takes f7 and rook takes d7, so this position is very good for me. So he can't play e5 yet. But my intention is to never let him play e5 in a favorable situation. So he was attacking my bishop, so I drop back and keep my pin. Attacking my other bishop, I retreat that bishop. Now I bring my rooks, gonna bring my rooks to e1 and d1, the half-open files, those are the best. This is a full, d file is fully open. So he just wanted to get some pieces off the board, because that pin was annoying him. I just complete my development now, and now I think that we can stop and take a little look at this position. I think that white has a slight advantage because this knight on h5 is kind of offsides, this rook on e7 is a little bit strangely placed, and this bishop on d7 is not very active. So those three things collectively give white a slight advantage, and all my pieces are on nice squares. However, this bishop could become weak later, because it's not doing much, it's biting on granite with this e6 pawn. I would like to play my knight to e5, and then I have ideas of sacking on f7 and then taking on e6 if this bishop ever moves. There. But other than that, as long as he keeps that in check, those kind of tactics, then this bishop on b3 is not very good. And I would like to reroute this bishop eventually to this diagonal here. So I would put I'd put the bishop on e4 here, f3. Anyway, he went back. I bring my knight here to, just like I said, attacks my queen. I considered c4 for a while here, but unfortunately it's refuted because it's hanging a pawn. Well, see, I thought he would have a back rank issue, but I mean, he has two pieces guarding e8 here, so that's the problem. So I played queen e5. I thought this is the time, and I got my knight to e5. Okay. Bishop e8. I don't see what exactly the point of that is, but I guess maybe I could have played f4, f5, and put pressure on f7 eventually. So rook d4, I'm planning to double my rooks. So right now, one of my biggest trumps is that I have control of the d file. And so now he's hoping to contest that control and trade off some pieces. If I was to take his knight, he takes back with the rook, and this is just dead draw, pretty much just a dead draw. So, but I wanted to win this game, so I have to keep pieces on the board. I play knight c4, and furthermore, this d6 square is looking very juicy. So I had my eye on that ever since we got a position where we traded the dark squared bishops, because now that d6 square is ripe. Yes, f4 here. So the idea, I'm preventing e5 forever now, and I'm gonna bring my rook here. So once I move my rook here, then that's one less defender of the e5 square. So I had to defend it in advance. And oh yes, I studied these endgames. This type of pawn structure, which I just call it a Rubinstein endgame, where you have black has these 4 pawns against white's 3 pawns, and then I have a 3 versus 2 advantage on the queen side. And in these endgames, white has to play f4 if he wants to win. Like you cannot win without playing f4. That's just my prior knowledge. So king f8. I was threatening f5, and now his rook is defended there, so he could just take my pawn. Although it's still possible, but not really. Like, I go here and recover the pawn, but I don't really think this is to my advantage. His rook is coming in, and his knight has a nice square on e4. I mean, if anything, I prefer black here. So, not what I wanted. So I just continued my plan. Now I have control of the d file. g6. And now he could have played rook d7 last move. It was possible. But now I'm preventing that, so this rook looks really silly now. And look at, it seems like I've achieved something here. I've improved my position. I got my pawn. I got this bind on his kingside pawns. I got my knight to e5. I got control of the d file. Like, things are looking up. So h5, and now at this point, I saw I could apply pressure with what I call a combination attack, because my opponent was starting to get down on the clock. He had about 30 minutes or something, but 30 minutes is really not that much for the rest of the game, starting in this position. So my plan was to play quickly here and pose some problems based on my slight advantage, and that combination of factors, along with the psychological pressure of me playing h3, which, like, when I go for a plan that my opponent just tried to discourage with this h5 move, I'm going to play g4 anyway, like, that is psychological pressure that can elicit further mistakes. So anyway, all those things combined, practical pressure on the board, well, objective threats, and the time, all three of those things are going to put a combinational pressure on him. So king g7, g4, takes. I have a lot of space here on the king side. And by the way, one of the reason why this f4 move works is because of the principle of two weaknesses. So if I was just to advance my pawns on the queen side and not my pawns on the king side, it wouldn't be enough in this endgame. I need to gain an advantage on both sides of the board and create two weaknesses in order to win. And the weakness I'm really looking at right here, as earlier I was targeting his dark squares because once he traded the dark squared bishops, but now I can, since he played g6, I can target this f6 square, as you'll see. g5. Now I thought it was time to move my king. Rook h8, and on this move I intended bishop takes d5. And the computer move is e takes d5, although white is still better. I think white is much better, but like I think like it's e takes d5 is a strange move because it's leaving him with this weak. His bishop is bad, and he has this pawn is isolated and weak. So most humans wouldn't do that. They'd much rather keep their position intact. But as it turns out, bishop takes d5 is an all too human mistake, because after I play this tactical move c4, he's forced to go back, and then he's losing more than just than what he would have lost with e takes d5, where he has the weak pawn and the bad bishop. See, for deep analysis will show that he's going to lose more than that here. And by the way, if he after c4, if he plays rook h2 check and tries to be active like this, his bishop is always in pre.
Check.
So king h3, he moves the bishop and I take it, and then his rook's hanging, so he can't do that. So bishop c6, and I invade with my rook. And here's one amusing variation. If he, well, for one thing, if he takes, and he tries to defend his back rank like this, knight takes c6 is winning a piece, because if he tries to take my rook, it's defended. If he takes my knight, then this rook's hanging. So that's just 1 point for this. And if he tries this rook h2 check, then I just run with my king. And if he takes this pawn, I take the bishop. He takes, and rook h1. And this is going to be a mating net with rook h8, rook h7. There's nothing he can do about that. So, like, just you can look at that on your own. Any move cannot stop that. So he could try here. You could try rook h3 check. King d4, rook h4, kind of hoping for a draw, like I go back. But no, I advance with the king. And if he takes this pawn, king d6 is the point. And after rook e8, knight takes c6, and you see this adventure with my king has netted me his rook, or at least a bishop. So that's kind of an amusing variation. So, but he saw that kind of stuff, so he didn't do that. He just played rook e8. And here I played rook takes e8, but I regretted not playing knight takes c6 here, because after b takes c6, rook takes e8, rook takes e8, rook d7, I believe this will be a winning rook and pawn ending, because well, I'll leave that to the student to work out for himself, but I think this would have been winning. But the computer also says what I did was also winning, so I can't be too critical with myself here. And so the idea here is that if he moves this bishop anywhere, then I take his rook, and then when he takes back, then this pawn is hanging to my knight. So he played f6, knight g4, or sorry, knight d7. And if he takes my knight, I take his bishop, and then I'm winning this pawn with check, and that's the winning endgame. Now knight f6, and his bishop is now pinned to his rook, and I'm now winning by force. The computer points out this clever resource here, but I don't think it's enough. But I suppose it's worth mentioning. Oh, sorry, not here. After king f7, he's lost, but here he could have played rook h2 check, king g3, rook d2, which is kind of amusing. because now my knight's pinned. But fortunately, I believe knight f8 is still winning. Because after rook takes d8, knight takes e6 check, and this is a pawn up endgame. This should be a win. So, anyway, back to the game. Knight f6, rook f8, king e3, bishop c6. Ah, yes, king e3 was a bad move because I could already take this. I could already just trade everything, and then this is a winning king and pawn ending. For instance, say we go here,
check,
like king c6, king e5, and if he takes here, I take here, and then I take this pawn, and my pawn's going to promote faster than his pawns can promote here. So, and then if he just stays passive like this, well, I have the opposition, and I can invade here to win. Like, say, plays a5 and a4, or if and he's in Zugzwang, or if he plays b5, take, a4. Once again, he's going to be in Zugzwang. Oh, he could go here, and then just b4 is enough. So, yeah, you can take a look at that on your own if you're interested. But I didn't do that, unfortunately. I was still keeping up with my plan of playing fast, but unfortunately it caused me to make some inaccuracies here. Nevertheless, we got this knight against bishop ending, which I still think is winning for me because this bishop is very bad, these pawns are very weak, and my king is more active than his king, because I'm going to get my king to e5 eventually. And I'd say the rest of the game needs no comments. I'll leave the student to examine the intricacies of this if it's a win or a draw. But here's the rest of the game.
Check.
A3. This is kind of picturesque because now all of my pawns are completely safe on dark squares, and all of his pawns are impeding his bishop, and all of his pawns are weak. So my knight's either my knight's gonna kill him, or my king will come into f6 or d6, and I win. And so pretty simple. Now bishop e8 is the last mistake. Knight a5.
Check.
And now I escape. He's in Zugzwang, so he resigned. And I won clear first. Then I got a nice payday. So, as always, thanks for watching. Like and subscribe if you liked my video and you want to see more. And I'll see you all later. Peace.